We're gonna, so to start off, I think there's still some confusion on the LADWP panel program. Please note, this is not the exact construction drawing. This is just a sample drawing. Everyone needs to go to DWP or UROC to get, have their builders or architects go to UROC to discuss the specifics of undergrounding and the combo panel. Depending on how big of a house you're building and how much electrical requirements you need, you will need to discuss the specifics and then get the list of panels that will suit your project. And then please note that all the combo panels will probably need to be surface mounted, not recessed. And then it will need both a weatherhead and also a conduit, underground conduit to the property line. And along with that, your high voltage and low voltage needs to be separated. So if your high voltage, which means the electrical, is on one side, please make sure that you also underground conduits on the other side for a telecom, such as Spectrum, cable, Verizon.
And May, can I say one thing? The mayor and AECOM confirmed we are undergrounding. DWP is doing so.
Yes, exactly. They're confirmed we're undergrounding. And then this next slide I'm going to show you, it actually goes to the real-time updates on how the funding is being done. So currently, if you go to this website, you could put in, oh, sorry, that's not it. So if you go to the hazard mitigation grant, you could actually see exactly how much money is being requested from FEMA. And this is the FEMA grant that has been requested by the city to go underground. And if you go down here, you can see these are all the different programs that has been requested. And then here, let me see, LADWP. There is the LADWP undergrounding, earthquake seismic upgrade. Hey, where did it go? Am I missing this? Oh, there you go. Underground cable resiliency retrofit project. So this has been submitted, and we're just waiting for approval from FEMA. And most of you guys know that this is actually, I guess, like Homeland Security wants final approval on this. So anybody over at Homeland Security, please start spreading the word that we need this funding to help us to go underground. Okay, and then of course all the decks are going to be shared later. All right, well, same as LADWP, SoCal Gas is also allowing rebates, giving us rebates for the fire rebuild. This is a link to it, and then they have a whole program, and I'll distribute a PDF later so everyone will have that information if you're returning with gas. Now, from last week's webinar, most of us learned about the Mercury Insurance fire mitigation discount. And one of the biggest discount they're giving is the 5% for FireSafe, Firewise communities. And this is a community level discount. And this is also the reason why we have invited David and also Peter to present to us how do we become a FireSafe community or Firewise community. And they also tell us the difference. And this is a link that's also going to be useful for all of us. This is a link to interactive homeowners insurance that you can see. Again, I'll share all this. You really just have to go onto this and then put in Los Angeles Pacific Palisades homeowners new. The maximum they go on the website is only $1 million, but the things that you'll be able to see, all the discounts are available to us, and then here, obviously, Mercury Groups is one of the most affordable at this level. All right, and now to our speakers. So David is with FireSafe LA, and he oversees the strategic development, fostering new partnership program. And Peter Fehler is a wildlife prevention and marketing and business growth consultant. He's also the president of Agoura Hills FireSafe Council. And we're looking forward to their presentation. And then we'll have David go first and Peter after. And please hold all your questions till the end of the presentation. So then we could go through, we could answer. Hopefully we'll get to all of them. If not, we'll always send the information to David and Peter and then post it on our FAQ. All right, David, do you want to, I'm going to stop sharing so you could start sharing.
Whoa. All right, everybody can see that okay?
Yeah.
You can hear me all right? Good. All right, everybody. Hello, good evening. For those of you that don't know me, my name is David Barrett. I'm from MySafe LA, which is a division of the Safe Community Project. I'm going to give you a quick little background. My presentation will be about 15 minutes or so. We've done this before, so I'm pretty confident we can do it in that time period. So the Safe Community Project is a 501c3 that was founded in 2008. We've been partnered with the LAFD since that time. We have relationships with 29 different fire departments across the state. We really do some of those agencies do one or two things a year, and other relationships such as with LA City Fire, LA County, we do that on a daily or weekly basis. There's three kind of key things that we do. We have the Wildfire Alliance for Los Angeles, which is a partnership between the LAFD and our organization. We have a whole series of community resilience activities. We're going to talk about some of that today. And we also do professional training. So we train community people in certified CPR, BLS first aid. We teach communities and fire departments in certification for evacuation. We develop community wildfire protection plans and emergency operations plans. So we're kind of a wide group of things that we do. Our website is full of information. And knowing May, she uses QR codes. We do that as well. So if you want to grab a picture, you can do that. I will also make this presentation available to May, so she may want to distribute it. So one way or the other, you can get access to the stories and the information that we want to share. So what I want to talk to you today involves four key things. What our organization is doing to help, some of the specific initiatives that we're working on related to looking forward towards 2026, some stuff about the importance of community and our organizational strength. So these four things actually are all kind of linked together, and nothing works without community, as you guys are aptly demonstrating. What you're doing in the ABC streets is really, really wonderful, and it needs to be replicated throughout, not just the Palisades or Altadena, but anywhere where this type of thing happens. So we are very focused on wildfire resilience. We are funded by FEMA, by the California Community Foundation, by CAL FIRE, by Cal OES, specifically oriented around developing NFPA Firewise sites, also around California FireSafe councils. What Peter talked to you about NFPA Firewise in his presentation, I'm going to talk to you more about FireSafe councils. They are different, but they're interrelated. So it's kind of important that you get a handle on both of them. But overall, through the training that we do, the town halls, the initiatives, we're all about empowering you, all of you out there, to build more wildfire-ready communities and to be a little happier and safer as we move into the new year. We have different kinds of engagements too. So I'm in Sacramento every month. I also fly to Washington, D.C., primarily because it would take too long to walk. But I do meet with our U.S. senators. When FEMA stopped paying people earlier this year, both of these gentlemen were extremely valuable along with two federal judges, to get FEMA to start making payments again. We are developing the City of Los Angeles' first ever community wildfire protection plan. It should be done by the end of the year. And we're also building mini plans, 30-page plans, which are broken out by council district. So in your case, if we do one for Council District 11, it would be based on Council District 11. We've also created a county collaboration where we have joined wildfire coordinators from Kern County, Orange County, Riverside County, LA County, and Ventura County, so we can operate as a region. That's helping us with home hardening legislation through Assemblymember Steve Bennett. It's helping us with the new pro tem for the Senate, Monique Limon. And it's something that's very, very important, is to share information. We're not lobbyists, but we do go and we advocate for what's going on. We give these elected officials information, and they're grateful for it, and they're taking action based on what they're learning. We do home inspections. So we are CAL FIRE certified wildland inspectors. If you have a home that needs to be inspected because it is still standing and you want to know what the challenges may be, we do that for free. We do these safety fairs. You've maybe attended one of the fairs that we've done on the West Side. And we also do podcasts, town halls, all that sort of stuff. Our podcast is really interesting. It's won a number of awards. And it has really interesting guests, survivors from the Palisades, from Altadena, elected officials, scientists. We've had people from NOAA, from NASA. It's really targeted, and it's news, and it's accurate, and it's good information on both sides of the ledger. People who are a little bit upset, people who are a lot happy, people who have lots of good ideas. So we try and share a lot of that through the podcast, and I would encourage you to check it out. You can get Rebuild LA is the name of it, and you can get it from anyone who streams podcasts. We also have a new home hardening smartphone app. This app is for you. It's for homeowners. It's not an inspection app. This is designed to help you track your ability to make your home hardened against wildfire. It'll allow you to track expenses, add receipts, photographs. It will generate a report for you to send to your insurance company. And it will also allow you to track the certification number, registration number, or any kind of information, including visual stuff. If you are an NFPA Firewise site, if you're an IBHS prepared for wildfire, if you're FireSafe Council, or anything else that qualifies. And this app, to be released in the next 60 days or so, is free. So you'll be able to get it without any expense to yourself. So looking forward, here's some of the things that we're doing which we think are really, really important for people. We're focused now on how do we get people thinking about what the future looks like, where there's light at the end of the tunnel. How are we able to come together better? So that's through a couple of initiatives. One, we have a storytelling initiative for 3rd through 8th graders who are able to have a series of different categories where they will be able to share their stories. And we have 5 young adult award-winning authors who will provide feedback and guidance to them. We have a relationship with the John Lennon Tour Bus, which is a $3 million or so mobile recording studio and education platform. We're going to work with the affected schools in both Altadena and the Palisades to help them develop music and allow it to be recorded through the bus. We're also doing an art contest, and you can see here in an image here, we've got kids here learning about storytelling from one of our award-winning authors. We also have a new grant program, which will start in November, where we are providing micro grants to people that need vents for their homes, and there'll be an application process for that. We're developing a wildfire recovery toolkit, which gives you all of the resources and understanding and application. And keep in mind, it's not just about your home. Most people have got that part figured out terrifically. It's about how are you going to not only navigate that, but navigate things like insurance. As you may know, the insurance commissioner just brought up a whole new plan today. He's termed out, and there'll be someone new in the office at the end of next year. I know that our local state senator, Senator Allen, is very interested in becoming the insurance commissioner. And since the Palisades is within his district, it's a wonderful opportunity for you to make sure that his team knows exactly what your issues are. I think it's very important for us to consider the importance of FireSafe councils and NFPA Firewise sites. These are things that all bring us together in community. If you've heard the term CRR, that means community risk reduction. And the key word is community. There's always going to be risk. There's always going to be challenges. The incoming rainstorm right now is something we have to think about. I wouldn't worry too much. But what's wonderful about your community is you're taking steps to be prepared, relocating students from one school to another, having your go plan, making sure you're ready to evacuate if you need to. But creating all of these efforts together is what will make you stronger in the long run. So when entire neighborhoods commit to this kind of readiness, the chance for survival amongst all of your homes becomes much stronger. Becoming a certified FireSafe council is a really important step in the overall process. And we're excited that there are at least 2 of them within the Palisades environment that are working with us to become FireSafe councils. So the NFPA has a program that is good for homes that are located together, right? So you want to be on the same block or across the street from each other. You don't want to be spread out over a neighborhood, but it could be as few as 8 homes and as many as 2,500 homes. Peter will talk to you a little bit more about that, but the key to that is that there are insurance discount opportunities, and you do not need to be a 501c3 or 501c4. You do not need to be a nonprofit organization to qualify for that. To become a certified FireSafe council, you do need to become a nonprofit organization, fully formed and managed, and you need to have a committee for wildfire, regular meetings. We help facilitate all of that, but the key benefit is that you have the opportunity to apply for grants once you're certified. There are FireSafe councils in Northern California that have been around for 20 years. They have millions of dollars in grant money that come to them. So if you think about what even $1 million would do for the Palisades, this is a really important opportunity for you to figure out exactly how you can make things better by working collaboratively. Right here you see an image of our captain for field operations, Dante Cornejo, and council member Rahman awarding FireSafe Council certification to the Hollywood Hills FireSafe Council. Didn't even exist 6 months ago. And now, boom, they're raising money. They've got projects going, and we're mentoring them and supporting them. This is really important for everyone to think about. So there's a lot of other things that you can do. And there's not much for me to say here because May and Allison and Sue Cole and all the people working with you together are doing a bang-up job. These Monday meetings are really important to focus on what's good and what's happening and what's coming forward. And I'm really, really encouraged when I hear about all the wonderful things that you guys are doing. So from our perspective, we want to be engaging in ways that are helping you feel better about yourself, where the issues surrounding your emotional state are mitigated and you feel better about those things, and to give you a path forward. Our folks, if they wear a uniform, are either firefighters or EMTs, and they have extensive experience working with people who have suffered loss. And I can tell you, the house I used to live in the Palisades on Lower Bienvenida was destroyed. My dad, who's 93 years old, he's a filmmaker, he still makes movies. He was evacuated from his house for 4.5 months, and it was just smoke damage. So there's a whole lot of things that we all have experienced, but I think one of the keys is if we can rely on each other and we can collaborate together, we can be very successful. So a couple tips: keep talking with us, keep talking with anyone else. Certainly May and Allison are great conduits for information. And be proactive, not reactive. One of the things that's important is we often get news information. You had a lot of news last week, which is probably kind of disturbing to you. But think about the proactive steps that are important as opposed to simply reacting to the news. Consider improving community readiness. One thing that might be a really good thing for people to consider is creating an Alphabet Streets CERT team. Community Emergency Response Team specific to the Alphabet Streets. It would be a wonderful thing. The LAFD does the training. It's free. They would be delighted to come to see you so you don't have to go anywhere, and operate for the community benefit, right? So that means that if we work together, there's not much we cannot do. We find, during the last 9 months, there have been so many obstacles that have jumped up and hit us all, and yet we managed to find our way through. And I think that is about human resilience, and it's about how we work together. Because we're a nonprofit organization and we don't sell anything, I have to put that up on the screen. But let's move forward, and if anyone has any questions for perhaps 4 minutes, and then we'll turn it over to Peter.
Actually, David, we're going to hold the question till the end after
sure.
Peter, if that's okay. Okay.
Up
Thank
to
you so much. Thank you so much. Okay. All right, Peter, so let's see. Peter, do you want to share screen?
Yeah. 1 second here.
Okay. Are you having issues?
Yeah, 1 second. Yeah, sorry.
Right, there we go. Thank you.
Okay, can everybody see my screen okay?
Yep.
All right, good evening. My name is Peter Fehler, and I'm a wildfire mitigation consultant. Firstly, David, I want to thank you for all the good work that you do. David in MySafe LA does very good work, and he's up there advocating for all of us in Sacramento. And many other things that they do. I've helped dozens of communities achieve Firewise recognition and have assisted many to become FireSafe councils as well. I currently consult for the cities of Agoura Hills, Calabasas, Hidden Hills, and I also do Siskiyou County, as well as communities in Oak Park and San Mateo. I was asked this evening to talk to you about Firewise and to tell you what I do. Firstly, I want to thank May and Allison for giving me a tour yesterday of the alphabets and helping me to understand what you've been through. Most of my Firewise presentations include slides and details of the causes, behavior, and destruction of wildfires. I will spare you of that, as most of you can probably teach me a lot about firewalls. Okay. I saw this the other day and thought of you, and that is disaster recovery is referred to as the second disaster for impacted communities. Your recovery and rebuilding and healing must include community, actionable, small steps towards wildfire mitigation and security. Small wins that turn into big gains. I've consistently heard from residents in the Palisades that the city, fire department, and services you thought were there to protect you failed you. Basically, there are not enough firefighters to respond to multiple fires. That is not how the fire departments are built and designed, the same as our freeways aren't designed for morning and evening traffic. They designed somewhere in between that and to handle less volume. It would just be way too costly. But so it is what you have done to your house that will protect your home and make a difference as to whether your home survives or not. These are general numbers, but your fire department can speak further to this. Home hardening and defensible space is not about stopping wildfires. It's about giving your home a fighting chance of survival. What I focus on is after you become a Firewise community, getting the community involved and taking action. Becoming a Firewise community is just the beginning. I'm a wildfire mitigation consultant who helps you educate, build an audience and community, engage and create change at the parcel level that will make your community safer from wildfires. Michelle Steinberg, she actually heads up Firewise, which is part of NFPA, which has been around for about 125 years. So I recently asked Michelle, what are the challenges? Education is everything. Today, thanks to organizations like RBHS, NFPA, NIST, the study of wildfire prevention and wildfire behavior is a science. Engagement and getting communities to take action is the social science of wildfire, and that's what I do. Surprisingly, it's not difficult at all to become a Firewise community. Your case is certainly unique and will require more work and deeper understanding from both the Firewise consultant and CAL FIRE. I've actually complained in the past that it's too easy to become a Firewise community. But Firewise USA is looking to grow and therefore has created an easy point of entry. As I mentioned before, your situation is unique. Your community is still grieving and in pain. This past week has been a difficult week for you all with the combination of SB 79, building permits, and the catching of the alleged perpetrator. Smaller community sizes follow a similar community organizational structure to your block captains, but a little larger. Concerned, smaller, more manageable groups are easier to influence. I got this information today from Michelle, actually, that as of October 13th, there were 3,166 Firewise communities in good standing, of which about 1,416 of them are in California. Yes, we definitely hold the bulk of them. As I've mentioned, obtaining Firewise status is not a difficult process. It involves me performing a community wildfire risk assessment, building a summary, and creating mitigation recommendations. That is then followed by me helping you develop a 3-year action plan. So you actually have to be telling CAL FIRE and Firewise USA what you're going to be doing, first to identify the risks, and then the 3-year action plan is the mitigation of those risks. And we detail those into what we're going to achieve. Year 1, we'll try do this. Year 2, we'll try build on that by 10%, etc. Becoming a Firewise community is not about getting the certificate of recognition. I'm told Mercury will be giving you a 5% discount on becoming a Firewise community. Actually, if you're on Fair Plan, you can take that 5% and get as high as 13% by following all their recommendations and things that they do. And basically, the more you do, the more you save. And that is the commissioner's motto. Yes, there can be a financial reward from your insurance company, but the Firewise program is about saving life and property. This is the hard part and can only be done through education, engagement, and resident management. Our process makes it much easier to manage your community and get results. These are the different steps and the efficiencies that come with it. These are some other assets that help us do that with some back-end automations, easy reporting, forms, and maintenance. Okay, so we've educated and we've created interest in the community. Now we have to make it easy for them to take action. The harder it is for them to take action, the lower the results will be. It recognizes ongoing management, maintenance, and collaboration. We have developed this resident management system that handles all the communications, CRM, which is your contact database, reporting, and Firewise reporting. You're required to report to Firewise in the November of every year. Education and engagement is an ongoing process. I've had a marketing company for about 45 years, and I have also had an email marketing service that did email marketing, engagement, and education. And this has given me the skill sets to help the communities get the word out there. It's also about collaboration. The California Department of Insurance has certain requirements in order to get those discounts, and Mercury allowing one of the things that the Department of Insurance had said, that if you are a Firewise community, that insurance companies have to give you a discount, and Mercury has extended that discount to you. I know that they did the same up in Northern California for the big fires up there in the Paradise Fire, and they're a great company to work with. The more you do, the more you save. The California Association of Realtors is now also involved in wildfire mitigation by mandating seller disclosures. As of July 1st, the seller now has to, on the sales agreement, answer these questions, whether they've done these certain upgrades to the home or not. And that is obviously going to affect the sales price, and is affecting the sales price. Approximately about 20% of escrows are falling out currently because of insurance or fire-related issues. So what are the benefits of Firewise? This is what a certificate looks like. The certificate and the map of your Firewise area is what your insurance broker will need to get you your discounts. Per the Department of Insurance, the more you do, as I said, the more you will save. Some of your home hardening priorities. Defensible space. I know there's a lot of emotions about this, but here are some slides from Marin County that actually has one of those flip books that'll help you do some design and give you some ideas of defensible space, that it can still be very attractive. Zone 0 does not mean no trees and no vegetation. I normally build websites for my communities. On there, you can see I make it very easy to navigate and great resources. One of the things that you have to do is you have to get the residents to report the Firewise activities that they have done. So when I first got involved in this was the biggest challenge that the communities had. How do we get the residents to actually report their Firewise activities? So my forms, I make them logical, and I also apply some conditional logic so it doesn't look too busy. Firewise needs to know from the residents also how much vegetation they've removed. This is because the Cal Fire and the California FireSafe Council gets most of its money via the through federal money, and federal money is forestry, and they need to know about the removal of the vegetation. And they want to know about it in cubic yards. So you want to see a resident run away from Firewise, ask them how many cubic yards of vegetation they've removed last year. We make it easy, and by having the pictures, they select the pictures, how many of those, and we do all the cubic yard calculations in the background. Reports are not just about accountability. They give you a picture of what your residents are doing and not doing. You don't want to find out in November, when you're required to file your annual report with Firewise, about changes in educational campaigns you should have done in February. Our system provides data visualization and segmentation of each block or community and each Firewise activity. And this one here, what your neighbor does or doesn't do does affect you. We provide content on a monthly basis. Here are just some of the news articles that we send out to our communities, keeping them engaged, keeping their interest high, educating and informing them. We also work a lot with materials and installers. There are many entrepreneurs entering the space with all kinds of solutions. We are resourced to filter some of that noise. Why use us? Establishing a Firewise community is not difficult. There are many of them. But running them effectively to achieve desired mitigation goals is a challenge. Our system makes you more efficient and effective and delivers successful campaigns. I hope I can help you rebuild the alphabets into a vibrant, safe community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Peter. Okay, so we're open for questions. Let's see those raised hands. I think Daphne has a question. Daphne, you want to ask your question first?
Sure. I was simply asking, there was reference to that there are numerous grants available, and I was just wondering, are these private grants or these public grants, governmental grants? In the first part of David's presentation. He can't unmute himself, I think.
Oh,
You're going to have to be manually unmuting. I have the same problem.
okay.
I just asked him to unmute. Yeah.
Yeah. David, go
And
ahead.
now-
You can unmute now.
Yep.
Or not.
There you
There
go.
you go.
Okay. So to answer your question, most grants, whether they're from foundations or state or federal sources, require that the entity applying is a nonprofit organization, a tribal organization, a university, or a city entity. So when you become a FireSafe council, that kind of opens the door to not only being a nonprofit, but being a qualified nonprofit. And so there are grant applications from private entities like the California FireSafe Council, the California Fire Foundation, the California Community Foundation. There's lots of places. The PPCC, as an example, got a grant from the California Community Foundation. And there's a number of those, but there's also federal grants. At least there are today. I don't know about next week. And there are state grants. California is pretty independent, and they have done a pretty good job of allocating and sequestering money specifically for these kinds of efforts. So the short answer is all of the above.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Allison.
I had a question for David and Peter, and for those listening. So we did have the pleasure of meeting Peter on our iLift block, and we were talking about how many people do we need to get together. And in our case, we have a developer that's built a house next door. So we don't know who's buying that house, and we don't know how fire safe that house will be ultimately. So maybe starting with Peter, if you can tell us, just say I have a group of 10 people within a block radius, can I start one of these groups, and will I receive the benefit of becoming a Firewise community?
So David had actually mentioned earlier that a Firewise community can be as little as 8 residents up to 2,500. They do, CAL-FI likes to keep them at about 500 or less, but there are some that are, I have communities up to 1,800 that haven't been a problem. And I know that there's some as much as 2,500 or more. It is a matter of managing them. That is the challenge. But it's important to note that Firewise communities are just a bunch and a group of residents that have gotten together and formed a group. They have no legal status. They have no enforcement status. They are just a group of residents trying to do good and trying to work together, and they get recognition for that and support for that. if you want an umbrella, a larger organization, that's when you become the FireSafe Council. And that is a 501c3, and obviously that is an organization that will have legal status. And that enables you, as David mentioned, to then apply for the grants. And about 95% of the grants require you to be a nonprofit 501c3. So I don't know if that answered your question, but yes, you could have 100 Firewise communities in the Palisades if you wanted to, or every group in the Palisades. I mean, what I would recommend is that, you know, you form 1 or 2 umbrella FireSafe councils for the Palisades, and then your different neighborhoods become Firewise communities that would then fall underneath the FireSafe councils. So the FireSafe councils could then try raise funds or get grants on behalf of the Firewise communities that would fall underneath them.
And
that's exactly correct. And the only other thing that I would add to what Peter has shared with you is that if you start small and demonstrate success, then you can have larger communities that grow after that. And one of the things that's important about Firewise is that once you've established a group, everyone needs to participate in that 3-year action plan. If they don't, and I can give you, I mean, I don't want to throw people under the bus, but we have several examples of Firewise entities in Riverside County that we've developed where people have moved or decided they don't want to participate, and they are not being renewed this year until they come into compliance. So everyone has to participate, which is why it's not a bad idea to consider the umbrella that Peter said, and then also, you know, create your first one of 20 homes, and then your next one could be 50 or 100 homes. But you're going to have then a model with information that's local. It's not coming from an outsider. It's coming from your neighbors that can tell you how effective and important and valuable it is.
And to David and Peter, so obviously, you know, you've seen the construction and the alphabets. We have 1 or 2 homes per block. So we may not have consecutive houses, but we are still allowed, if we're not consecutive, to form 20 people together. Is that correct?
I'll take this one, David. The answer, I said during my presentation how your case is unique, and it would be very interesting to see how Firewise and CAL FIRE handle your case. There's obviously going to have to adjust some things. Most of the people that the communities David and I deal with are going to be obviously established communities with the houses there. One caveat that I would say when forming these Firewise communities is if you decide to enlarge your Firewise community, even if you decide to add 1 more block to your Firewise communities, you actually have to start from the very beginning and go through a new community wildfire risk assessment and create a new 3-year action plan. So when you're planning this, even if there are only 2 houses standing on that community, when you draw your map, include everybody who you want to include, even if there are only a few houses on that particular block. Make sure that the whole block is, or that whole community is part of that Firewise community, that you'll end up giving it a name, or the alphabet, Firewise community, whatever you want to say. Make sure that your map includes everybody who you're going to want to include over the next few years, or you're going to have to start from the beginning again.
Wow, that's interesting. I think we need to discuss it as a neighborhood. Allison, is there any follow-up question, or we're going to go to Leanne then?
Just if one person's not in, that's okay, but they never agreed to be in, you can still form a group.
No problem. So
okay. Just want to make
everybody has to participate at all. You just draw a map of an area, and you say this is the ABC Firewise community. And I mean, I would say that you would be careful of your expectations, because I can tell you that, you know, like most nonprofit or most community-based organizations, you know, most 90% of the work is done by 10% of the people. And that is just how it works. The reporting as well. I have some people that report because if you're paying your gardener and you're paying him $200 a week, that's actually a Firewise activity. So you need to record that you're paying them, and then that money goes towards what your community and your Firewise community has contributed. So there are people that report weekly, some report monthly, others just take the $200 they're paying and they times it by 52 and they just report it once a year. All of those are acceptable. But once again, involvement, you just draw your map and get as many people as you can engaged, involved, and doing what they can.
Thank you.
All right, Leanne, you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, hi. Sorry I'm not showing myself, but it's not a pretty sight. It's raining on the East Coast. All of this talk in this last segment has me wondering about the coaching that you give to people who want to create these communities, about the best way to go about the soft science of convincing neighbors and collaborating with neighbors. What is that like? How do you guys deliver that so that we can benefit from the experience that communities have had in being successful or not successful at that?
Well, I'll start off by saying that you've actually hit on one of the biggest challenges, which is when you have a board of directors or a group of people like May and Allison and Sue Cole and so on, who are all about making it work. They're here because they want to get things done. But there's a lot of people in many neighborhoods who are busy and who don't think that anything's going to happen to them and that sort of thing. The Palisades is a unique situation, and I think you're going to have much more buy-in and much more proactive engagement simply because of the horror that you guys have gone through in the past. And it's time to get over that. I don't mean it in the sense of get over it like you should. I simply mean it's time for us to work together to feel better and to look towards 2026 and beyond. So I don't think it's going to be too heavy of a lift. In our situation, I think Peter in his business and in our nonprofit organization do similar things. We have weekly pings that go to people that direct them to the website with hints and tips. We participate in town halls and meetings. We actually knock on doors and ask people if they've got stuff, and we have handouts to give them. We do these fairs. So there's a lot of ways to perpetuate engagement. And the only other thing that I would say that's really important is every neighborhood, every community is unique. There's no model that you should follow with the expectation that the results will be the same. Peter?
Yeah, no, I agree with David. I've been doing this for a long time. As I said, I had a marketing company. Our main verticals was nonprofits. So I am used to building audiences and educating them and engaging them with information. I do it through what is called behavioral-based segmentation, in that when I send out emails using my CRM, they teasers, and people then click on different stories. And by clicking on different stories, I know what their interests are. And so, I go out to close to 10,000 people every month. I have an open rate of about 57% by average. For those of you that note, if you have an engagement, an open rate of in the high teens, you're doing very well. And then I have a click-through rate in the high teens, 18, 19%. But like all online engagement emails, when are you sending it, what time of day, what are your headlines, what are the stories about, etc., because it's about delivering the right message to the right person at the right time. And certainly, as David said, you definitely have an audience that's extremely sensitive to wildfire. And I do believe that with the right messaging and the right content, we could do good, and we could educate the people and convince them to act, because wildfire mitigation has to happen at the parcel level. And that means that people have to do the work on their own home. And that takes education, it takes convincing, it takes repetition, it takes multiple touches. What they say that you have to be touched 7 times before you act on something. But that's what it takes, over and over, and bringing stories to you and information to you that's going to be relevant and hopefully resonates and hopefully gets you to do what needs to be done.
And your company handles that, or you hand it over as a kit of parts that is done by the council?
I do most of the content creation for most of my clients, but it really depends on the capabilities of the community. I don't know May well. I've spoken to her a few times, but I can tell you, you're extremely lucky to have May and Allison leading you up here, because it is, I see the hearts floating up. They deserve it very much so. I was so impressed by my phone call with May that I decided I have to go meet her. I have to go up and see the alphabets. And I asked her, would you mind showing me around yesterday? And she did. So a lot depends on what your needs are. So the needs are out there. If you have the capabilities to fulfill those needs, then you handle it. If you don't, then I do it for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Peter. Well, it's all for selfish reasons. I want to go home. I don't want my house to burn down again. Okay, so and actually, I have a question, Peter and David. What if your home qualifies as an IBHS home? Would that automatically enable you to be, because they also have a review program every 2 years?
They do, and it's individual.
Right.
You don't have to be part of Firewise or FireSafe Council, but you do have to do everything on the checklist to qualify.
Right. But the thing is, if you have an IBHS home already, and then you're also a Firewise a community, let's just say, right? So let's just say, for example, I live, like me, Allison, Sue, we're all rebuilding. We form a Firewise community just along I live. And if all of us are deemed as IBHS homes, do we still have to go through that recertification every 3 years with Firewise?
So
it's every year. It's every year.
Every year. Oh, sorry, every year.
So Firewise is a community group of people, and the certificate that you get is for the community. It's not about each individual house. There might be homes that are in Firewise communities that are terrible and are fire risks to the whole community, yet they still qualify for the group discount because they're in the map of the community that qualified as a Firewise community. When you talk about IBHS prepared homes, called wildfire prepared homes, they actually have 2 levels. They have the basic and they have the plus. With that, you have to follow the IBHS recommendations for basic and do everything on their list for the basic. And then if you want the plus, then you have to follow the plus. I can tell you that quite a few of the insurance industries that started to recognize IBHS started off on the plus only. And then they moved from the plus down to the basic, which was a great thing. but it's through IBHS. They have to come out and inspect the home. They have certain inspectors that'll come out and address that. It does cost money to do that. But I know that in my area in Agoura Hills, a lot of people who are trying to sell their homes make them IBHS wildfire prepared homes. And that actually seems to be enabling the houses to sell earlier. And as you know, Agoura Hills, I've been evacuated out of my house a few times. So we also have our wildfire issues. So it's a separate thing. It's the resident getting a wildfire prepared home certification from IBHS. The other one is a community recognition by Firewise USA, which is part of NFPA. Two different organizations. Their requirements are moving closer and closer. They actually have an MOU. There are a couple of bumps in the MOU, but we want one consistent message. And that's what we're looking for. Is it 10 foot between each tree, or is it 5 foot between each tree, vertical, horizontal, etc.? So those are the things that we're looking for.
Thank you, Peter. I think Daphne has a question, and there's a couple of questions in the chat. Well, Allison, do you?
I'm happy to have someone else go first.
No, go ahead, Daphne.
Okay, I actually, I'm a little intrigued by what you just said, because given what Allison said earlier about the next door not being as Firewise as it were, it seems a little unfair if you're doing it for the entire community. Some people are helping get the designation, but others don't have to follow it and could essentially tank everybody else if there was an actual fire. So that just seems unfair. I was actually going to ask if you designated an area and somebody put in their plans, but they hadn't finished building their house, like on the same street, do they need to get verified later that they complied? But what it's sounding like is, as long as you put them within the group, they get the benefit whether they comply or not on some level. And that seems a little at odds with what the goal is, as opposed to IBHS, where everybody has to comply for themselves.
So you are correct in many ways that in any community there could be some bad apples. You know, I am part of the Zone 0 workshop group that the state is putting together. Governor Newsom had said that on January 1st, new homes, Zone 0 should be implemented on new homes. Where we are right now in the workshop that I've seen is retrofitting. They're going to allow up to 3 years. This is where they're at right now, but the final Zone 0 regulations haven't been submitted yet. But as far as where that sits on plans, whether plans approved or not, but new construction, Zone 0 will definitely be coming to new construction soon. I don't know where it's going to fall in is it plans? If you've got approved plans, are you okay? I don't know how that works. But some of these things are already in the code. So things like Class A roof, that's been around for many years. You know, 90% of the homes in Los Angeles already had Class A roofing. All of these things, the information's out there, and there are many different things. They're just small nuances, such as if you have a bay window. So in IBHS Basic, you're okay having the bay window if there's nothing combustible underneath it. But IBHS Plus, they want you to take that bay window all the way to the ground so that nothing will actually be underneath the bay window. These are the kind of differences and details that you might have on some of these. Some of these things they might want, you know, they all want the windows to be double glazed. and they want the inside window to be the tempered window, but the plus will want both of them to be tempered. So they're just little small nuances that might be different. I wouldn't concern yourself too much with that. You know, it just after what you've been through, you know, I would say it's really important that you become a FireSafe council, or that you have that umbrella so that you can go after the grants. I think that you would have a good chance, knowing what you've been through, to get some of those grants. But the competition out there is growing. The more FireSafe councils you see that are growing, and Firewise communities are growing, unfortunately, the grants aren't growing at the same speed. So, you know, when I first got involved in this, the ability to get grants was that much easier. But form your FireSafe councils, create your Firewise communities, and build from there.
I do think it's important.
Thank you, Peter. Sorry. Sorry, Peter, David, I just want to make sure everybody's okay staying a little longer, because it's 6 o'clock. So if everyone's okay, we'll go a little longer. So sorry, David, go ahead.
That's okay. I just was suggesting that Team Palisades should take whatever steps they can to at least communicate with developers. I mean, anyone who's rebuilding their home, I think, is fine. But for people that come in and decide they're going to buy up a property and then build a home to resell it, or to rent it, or whatever that might be, you should at least communicate with them. I can tell you, in my driving through the ABC streets a couple of days ago, I saw homes that had vinyl fencing going right up to the structure. People were planting vegetation right up against the home in zone 0. So there are things happening which are not necessarily the best. And I actually talked about it with Cal OES day before yesterday, and the response was people tend to repeat their mistakes. So I don't think anyone who's lost a home will, but I think a developer doesn't know. And because they don't know, it's important to at least say hi, and just in case you're interested.
And David, on that note, I really appreciate that. I'm actually experiencing that myself personally right now. So Lou Kamer asked, who lives in the 900 block of Iliff, I'm in the 1000 block of Iliff, how can a Firewise community convince a developer who will make decisions differently than an owner to build in a way that is Firewise friendly?
So
I mean,
what I would recommend that you do is you bring in David or myself, or both of us, and we actually hold an educational event for developers and for landscape architects on what the current laws are, what the pending laws are, and we try educate them on this, because many of the educational sessions that I've been to have contractors, have landscape architects and landscapers there who are trying to learn. That is a huge part of the learning and educational process that I like to do. I know that, you know, for instance, the Marin County Smart Yard, what I like about that flip book is it's half English and half Spanish, so that you can actually take that, print it out, or send it to your gardener, because the truth is you're not out there removing the dead vegetation, your gardener is. So it's important. You can know everything about wildfire mitigation, but unless they're educated, it isn't helping your property. So that's incumbent upon this group and Team Palisades to maybe hold some of these educational seminars.
And the next question you may have answered, David. I didn't know if you wanted to add into that question as well. Sorry, you may have wanted to.
Add to the question about how to convince people, or how to convince developers?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important that we don't tell people anywhere what they have to do, right? We don't have the authority to enforce anything. And at the same time, I think even if we asked for a show of hands, everyone would raise their hand. We're all sick and tired of being told what to do anyhow. So we need to be able to do things that are incentivizing, that give people the belief that if they do these things, everyone will be better off. The home will have better resale value. The ability for it to survive a wildfire will be greater. And by the way, not just the wildfire. You know, one of the things that's happening this Thursday is the Great Shakeout, which is an annual drop, cover, and hold on muscle memory thing for us to remember what to do during an earthquake. Just, you know, the Palisades could shake a little bit. And if you're building your home to be wildfire resistant, it's also going to be in many regards more earthquake resistant, and it will certainly be safer for emergency responders. Homes that have short setbacks and then people plant stuff in there, it's not safe for firefighters. It's not safe for rescue people. And you certainly don't want to be responsible for a firefighter being injured or killed. So I think it's a case by case basis, Allison. But let's try a few and let's see what we can. I know you've got a situation. Hey, I'll come up there and talk to somebody and let's see what we find out.
Thank you. There's another question that dovetails exactly what you just said, kind of a carry out with IBHS. So one, Carmel asked, I'm concerned about IBHS criteria with home setbacks. Do we know anything about that? It's a general question.
Yeah, it's a good question, because and Peter, jump in here, but my understanding is that a setback of 4 feet is too short.
Yeah, and then actually last week during the webinar, we asked the same question, and I believe Steve was saying, Steve Hawk was saying that you know, the things that have building a block wall, a fire resilient wall in between will help the case, and they're looking at that in our last conversation with IBHS.
One of the challenges that you have is we're trying to create legislation for California for all the different, one kind of legislation for all the communities. And the kind of housing that you have in Northern California, and farmlands, and in Southern California is very different. The materials they use, the spacing, the vegetation, the style. And of course, if you've got custom houses, then every house is different. You know, every vent size is different. So it's extremely difficult to make legislation that's going to work for everybody. And, you know, in some of my communities, I have homes that actually have common walls. So how does the 5-foot offset work when you share common walls? But I believe that we all have to be reasonable about this. We have to understand the intent, and we have to do our best for our own safety, our family safety, and our community safety. So a lot of it is about intent and us trying our best to harden our homes, harden our communities, so that we all have a safer place to live.
That's very, very wise. I will tell you also that for IBHS, Wildfire Prepared Home Basic and Advanced, minimum 5 feet, no exceptions.
Thank you for that definitive answer. We appreciate that. I
can
believe
expand on that for 1 second, and that is the reason how they came up with 5 feet. It isn't, they didn't just pull it out.
Oh, it's very, the IBHS has done some wonderful tests, and they've determined that anything that lands outside of 5 feet is likely to die. And that and even if there is ignition, that it's not likely to create an ignition point on the structure.
Right. At the 5-foot mark, there's something called a stagnation zone.
Stagnation zone, that's exactly right.
And, you know, that's the science. When it comes to wildfire, there's a lot of science out there, and we have to be careful not to let emotions, you know, put down or dilute the science.
I believe the final question, unless anyone else has their hand up, or if anyone else would like to be unmuted, we're happy to hear your voices. You're all these amazing block captains, and we have all of the alphabets participating today and more. The final question was from Jill Smith. What is to motivate someone to join if they get the benefit without doing any work? Kind of to Daphne's question. You covered a bit of that. Oh, and Carmel, you have your hand up again.
I'll try to take that one, David. You know, it is an issue. It is definitely an issue. I said earlier in my presentation, this should not be about getting your discount from your insurance. This should be about community responsibility. It should be about responsibility to your own property and your own family. And that should be the motivation. And if that's the motivation, then whether you're part of a Firewise community or not makes no difference. And also, like I said, you can get up to 13 or 14.5% discount from your insurance company.
Pretty amazing.
Their plan is 13%. So being a Firewise community is only going to get you 5%. So if the driving factor is financial, the more you do, the more you save.
Oh, May, I think you're on mute, but did we want to have Carmel answer?
Yes, Carmel, go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much, guys. This is so informational. I really so much appreciate it. I did tune in a little bit late. But I did look at the IBHS criteria about a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. So I'm speaking back from my memory. But what I remember seeing was that there was a gradation of setback. So there was a 5-foot setback, and then there was the next criteria of 10 feet between homes. And then there was like this this basket of 10 to 30 feet and then greater than 30 feet. And for each one of these baskets that you qualify for, you get additional discount on your
The sliding scale. Yep.
Yeah. And actually I'm actually going to try to take this into my neighborhood because we have a significant number of homes burned, although we do have some more standing than the alphabets. But I'd like to try to take this into our neighborhood and see if we can try to get neighbors to agree to design their homes with attention paid to the setback, because I really do believe that paying attention to these setbacks and keeping homes away from each other is going to make a huge difference for fire safety as well as for insurance, and trying to make a community that complies with this. My understanding, you actually do get more of a discount even on insurance, and it's not even so much the discount, it's the fact that you become more insurable. So you have the option of getting insurance in the first place.
Yeah, Carmel, I would like to answer a couple of things there. Absolutely. Insurability is a huge factor. Absolutely. But I think that you should go back to the IBHS site, and I think you might be confusing a couple of things. You have to be careful not to confuse home hardening and defensible space. So a defensible space, zone 0 is actually defensible space. It's from a structure out 5 feet. And then zone 1 is from 5 feet to 30 feet. And zone 2 is then from 30 feet to 100 feet. So when they're talking about some of those larger feats and space, they're probably talking about zone 1 and zone 2. And then they are talking about the distances between trees and continuous fuel and things like that. As far as home hardening, defensible space. Actually, zone 0 falls within defensible space. But the other thing to consider that it's 5 foot around all structures. So if you have an ADU or a separated garage or something, a detached garage, you need 5 foot around that as well. So it's for every structure that you need 5 foot. And Alison, I see you nodding your head there as I saw that you actually have a detached garage.
Yeah.
So that's also something to think about.
So just so everyone knows that you're also required to have 10 foot between your home and or also your ADU per LA City Code, unless you get a variance. So that's part of the code, unless you have a pre-existing eligible, but that's a whole other conversation. And then I think what Carmel you were talking about was this a chart we showed last week on the Mercury savings, Mercury Insurance's
Yes, that's
defensible
where it
space.
was.
Yeah,
Yes.
this is Mercury Insurance's defensible space.
Yes,
And then
sorry.
they do allow for additional discounts if you follow all the different zones. So anyway, I'll stop sharing that, but I think that's hopefully that clarifies.
Thank
And
you.
I think well, and if there's no other question, we'll end with the last question. With the 10 foot between houses, does the wall in between the two homes negate that? No, it doesn't. It basically, they're requiring 10 foot between houses. But the thing is that if you do have a fire resilient walls in between, it does help your case. And that's something that we actually discussed with Mercury last week during the webinar too. So, anybody else have any questions?
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
both
Thank
have
you,
been
David. Thank you,
amazing.
Peter, for coming. Thank you
very
so much.
everybody.
All
Really
right. Well,
appreciate all your efforts.
so, all right, good night. Go have dinner
Okay.
and then be with your family and then stay safe. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
See you
you.
all.
Stay
Bye-bye.
safe.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
everyone.
David. Thank you.